Hello everyone, I'm Perfoon and this is my GDC experience. We begin our journey at 5:30 Saturday morning from the Tallinn's airport. And our next destination was the Frankfurt airport in Germany. But we couldn't stay for long because at 10 o'clock we started a much longer trip to San Francisco. And even though we were flying for about 11 hours, it was still the midday when we arrived there. And our first task was to figure out how to use the local Clipper card. After which we had an awesome train ride through the endless suburbs of San Francisco. And I have to say, when we finally got out of the metro station, it felt like a party in there. Luckily, our hotel was also located right in the next corner, so we checked into our rooms, which strangely required additional $500 deposit, which I think is just custom in this country. So this was my room. It was really modern and had a great view. So after a quick break, we decided to move out right away and check out the GDC area. Some people were gathering around the main building and there were supposed to be an official dinner, but we didn't want to wait and instead had our own in a nearby Korean fast food restaurant. The breakfast next morning was interesting. There were a lot of sweet options and quite limited savory section. But the omelette and corned beef were actually really good. I'm a bit sad that the waffles stole the show in this morning, because at later days they only served the scrambled eggs and bacon. We moved out early to visit the famous Golden Gate Bridge, and it has become a tradition to hike over it and back before every GDC. And I have to say, it was an amazing weather when we arrived there, and everyone got a chance to make a lot of really nice pictures.
But for the most part, we can walk all the way across unfettered. You will get a decent amount of sun going across as the sun comes up behind us. But we'll go over and then we'll take a pause on the other side and kind of maybe wait for everybody to catch up. And but if you guys don't mind, we like to take a picture. Maybe some of you saw it on the invite. So
besides us Estonians and Latvians, there were also some locals in there, and I got to make this really cool interview.
So you're from the Monolith.
I am, yes. I don't know how much I could talk about on video though. You have to understand how to make games. Like, I think that the main skill, at least AAA studios are looking for, are like having shipped a game, having gone with a game from start to finish, and understanding what the problems you face when you ship a game are. Like.
So yeah, this is how we were hiking and just having a great conversation. And the bridge itself was also just magnificent. The round trip length of the Golden Gate Bridge was supposed to be 5 kilometers long, but it definitely felt much shorter than that. And on our way back, we also met up with the Finnish game devs who have just arrived. And at the end of the hike, we had a nice cup of coffee, although I personally preferred a cup of freshly pressed orange juice and some ice cream. After that, we headed to the Pier 39, which was just a short bus ride away. And once again, the weather was just perfect.
Sa lähed nagu hommikul turule, valid välja ja siis ise nagu grillid. Värske, no nii värske.
Ise teed valmis ka?
Jaa.
And the closer we got, the more it started to resemble a party. But instead of directly going to the pier, we first found a really cool retro arcade museum. The entrance was free and it seemed to have hundreds of antique arcade machines. Some of them were pretty much a random number generators with a really creative themes, like these grandmother predictions, for example. And discovering how they were working was pretty much hearty fun. Among those machines, there were also some cool exhibitions. And the results were also creative indeed, like this baseball crank. I also got the chance to try the sorting hat.
Hello! Glad you stopped by for your fortune. Interesting. Very interesting. I see big money coming your way soon. Remember me when it does.
And it seems that Blastronaut is going to do quite well. This golf game gave you 3 balls for a quarter, and it had some really interesting analog controls. It also had a great variety of more modern games from the 80s. And even some 3D games were represented. But my favorite were definitely the classics.
Game over. No? Now it's game over.
And behind the back door there were a submarine and a warship. We didn't explore them from inside, but maybe next time. After this quick detour, we continued our way towards the pier.
Wow.
And eventually we got there. There were quite a lot of people and it resembled an amusement park. And we were also not the only one having a good time in there. And we also checked out the local shops in there.
mis sa arvad, kui kaua aega läheb enne, kui sa lihtsalt ära sööd selle moneti nagu? Hoiad ennast tagasi piisava aja?
The Squid Game toys seem to be really popular everywhere. This, for example, was a VR attraction. And a dedicated shop for the left-handed people, just like Flanders. We also checked out some street performers, and then we were invited to eat some sourdough bread.
The childhood fresh grill, baby. We got Boudin Sourdough Bakery Cafe Restaurant right there. We'll get you some sourdough bread to take home.
ma võtsin ka prillid eest ära just sellepärast, et see on nagu
So that's what we ate in a form of traditional clam chowder. Afterwards, we found some really big gummy bears with the similar sized price tag. And a shop dedicated to just hot sauce. We wanted to head back with the San Francisco cable car, but the waiting line was really long and we decided to take a walk instead. And it wasn't so bad after all, because we could enjoy the amazing views for a bit longer. Including the famous Lombard Street and cars struggling to drive in there. Afterwards, I took my first tour to the Target store, and then we got to sleep early because of the jet lag. And now it was Monday, the opening of GDC. So we had a nice breakfast, and then I was heading out to get my badge. Luckily, the COVID check line was not too long anymore, and I had to hurry to get to my first meeting in time. Unfortunately, despite our efforts, we didn't find each other at the time, so to spend some time, I sneak into the expo area to see what's going on in there. And yeah, it was quite massive and hard to orient. So, apparently I failed to meet up with Mr. Phil, and other Estonians are touristing around somewhere far away. So now I have to do the next best thing, which is to find some friendly Americans and hang out with them. Even though we didn't have the passes to the talks, these were really expensive, we could get into the building and see what's going on in there. And right away I found an interesting talk about Godot engine from Juhan Linsky. I tried my luck to sneak in from a wrong door, which didn't work out. Also tried to ask very nicely, but that didn't help either. But at least I had a very good time hanging around, even meeting some cool developers from the Hangar 13 studio. I learned from them that the San Francisco Chinatown were supposed to be really cool, so that's where I were heading next. Instead of heading straight to the Chinatown, I chose my path a bit incorrectly and had to do some hill climbing. So first up the hill and then down the hill again. The Chinatown was surprisingly big, much larger than the one in the London, and I got a large bag of goodies for a really affordable prices. I didn't really have the time to visit all the places, but at least I found this bubble tea cafe and got a nice big cup of mango bubble tea. On the way back, I found this really cool modern art gallery, and I exited from the main entrance where I should have gone in, because the way back was at least 2 times shorter. In the evening we met up with Estonian group again, and we were heading to the local Irish pub. It was actually a really nice place.
Janus loogib sealt kohe paigalt.
And I fully enjoyed my corned beef sandwich. On the Tuesday morning, our goal was to head back to the mess hall and set up our booth. And as you can see, other areas were also starting to take shape. So now I finally found the location where our Baltic Explorers booth was located. As you can see, the underground area was really massive. And our Finnish friends were sharing some information about a party this night. I also took some time to check out the GDC store and see what was sold in there. And there were a lot of stuff, but it was also really expensive. The book selection was impressive as well. It had many game books, but also a lot of educational material. I found a really small roguelike design book that was interesting, so I asked the price, and it was $49.99. Needless to say, it wasn't a sell for me. For the lunch, I headed to the park, and a lot of people were gathering in there. And during my last visit, I noticed some loaded fries that I really wanted to try. These were really tasty, and I also got a chance to make some more friends. In the evening, we were heading to the advertised after party. And when we arrived there, the place happened to be really empty. Maybe we were a bit too early, but I think the type of music that was played in there was also not for our Baltic tastes. So in the end, we didn't stay there for too long. And instead, we ended up in another Irish pub again, where I had a really tasty burger. So Wednesday was a very exciting day because it was our first expo day. And this is what our booth looked in the morning before the doors were open. And a bit later the people came in, and I pretty much spent my whole day in the booth showing the Blastronaut game. And now you can see just a quick walkthrough in other areas starting to come to life. For this lunch, I decided to try chipotle, but in the end I was a bit disappointed in this food. It was tasty, but I think I can make a better wrap myself.
Alright. That's good. Hopefully I can be a good model. Oh no!
In the evening, I had two choices. I could either hang out with our own group again, or I could try another official afterparty. And this time I chose the latter option. It was taking place in the very same place where we were yesterday. At least this time it had some people. I wasn't there too long, however. Had a pizza and an ice cream, and the ice cream was amazing. On Thursday we had an expo day again, but this time I also took some time to see what's going on around us. Here's Amptix. They are making the haptic solution that feels exactly like the sound effects. Here's some cool technology for hand tracking. They have made custom gloves that are tracking the fingertips, and the rest of the fingers are inversed kinematics. Some booths are attracting people with cool games. Unity Engine had booked an enormous area, and there were a lot of motion capture companies that displayed their tech with live actors.
Unreal is just the one that we chose for GDC. We have other animation plugins too.
Here is Amazon's booth, and also the crypto technologies were represented as well. But I personally really like the company who is making computer graphics math books.
You can let your players join tournaments that your game is sponsoring, or create tournaments of their own. So in this case, we have a leaderboard going on each day.
And occasionally I checked back to our own booth to see if someone is looking for me. I also had some scheduled meetings with different people and had a tasty meal at a place called Fresh Roll Metron. In the afternoon, we also tried our hands on some competitive mobile gaming.
If you were having a hard time getting into a tournament or something like that, I am happy to help you get in. If I can't figure out what the heck's going on, one of these beautiful skills employees can.
The prizes were really nice, and the competition was not too bad either. In the evening, we were heading to the Nordic party. Many of us had been waiting this event for quite a while. And it was also really cool to just hike through a nighty, foggy San Francisco. But finally we got in, and it was our first really decent party.
Just in case you have trouble getting it into your suitcase
or into your country,
you can move into my place. Yes.
And most importantly, it had some unlimited free food. The selection consisted of burgers, hot dogs and salads. And the drinks were also for free. I mostly preferred to hang outside because it was a bit more quieter in there, and over time the place got quite crowded, so I mostly just walked from one group to another group, introducing myself and having some chat with new people. The Friday began as the days before. It was the last day of GDC, so I mostly hung out around our booth, also visiting the neighboring booths where I hadn't been before. I had also got one free ticket to any GDC talk, and I chose the talk called Procedural World Handling in Returnal, because it was interesting for me to see how the procedural world generation is done in a AAA studio.
We have a solution for that too. Try out the destructible door. Same physical location, different time.
It was very Unreal Engine specific, but the presenter was really good. After that, I proceeded back to the GDC store that now had some massive discounts. $50 bag now costs $25, and there were quite a line too that I accidentally might have cut. Once I got back to the underground expo area, others have already packed up, so I quickly took my things and headed out too. And this was the end of GDC, but I still had one last mission. I need to find a suitcase to bring all the good stuff back that I have acquired. So I went to hunting trip to a store called Ross. And the hardest problem was to choose which one to pick. But eventually I picked up this one for $50. In the meantime, others have already arrived to the beach party. It would have been around 1 hour trip and I assumed the pizza would also be gone. Instead, I decided to have my own pizza party. And luckily there was this place just around the corner of our hotel. And it was the right choice. The pizza was really good and I even got the cheesecake too. So finally I also took some time to pack up all my stuff neatly. And yeah, on Saturday we had some time left over before we had to head out. So I did a last walk through the streets of San Francisco. Also visiting the big shopping mall in the center of the city. Henry even had a list of things he had to bring back home. Afterwards, I was walking through the GDC area again that they were already taking down, and also visiting the local computer shop to see what are the prices in America. They were quite similar to Estonia, but compared to the rest of the cost of living, they must feel quite cheap. And then we headed back to the airport with another train ride.
Henry, näita siia.
Henry had won this Nintendo Switch Lite from the Skills game, but we couldn't test it out because we didn't have proper internet. And even though initially it seemed that the flight was overbooked, we still got on board and headed back to Estonia. I also met a really cool Canadian guy on the plane who was participating in another conference at the same time. And I have to say that the views over the hilly San Francisco were amazing. The airplane food was good as well. I only wish that they would have some more meaty options to choose from. Overall, the flight back went much quicker because I was able to sleep most of the time. And that was my GDC. Now to end up this video, I will give some advice to anyone who's planning to participate in upcoming years. First of all, what is your goal in GDC? Are you planning to get a job or find some investors or publishers? Both of these are valid reasons to go. Secondly, bring a lot of business cards. I brought 100 and ran out of them quite quickly. I also handed them out as part of my game's pitch. Thirdly, you need to find a way how to stand out from the crowd. I made a game-related t-shirt, but it didn't work very well because it was covered by GDC badge. So next time I will definitely try the hat strategy. Fourth, you should also plan all the meetings beforehand. Ad hoc meetings will also happen, but there are just so many people that it's hard to find the right ones. The same advice goes for the after parties. Book them beforehand. And finally, just have fun. It was my first time in America, so I'm really glad that I had some time to just look around and do some touristing as well. And now that's really it. So thank you for watching, wishlist Blastronaut in Steam, and I hope to see you in the upcoming events. Have a great one.